Hello, in this short video I'm going to present the basics of ReComp, a framework that is intended to optimize the execution of data-intensive applications. ReComp can look at changes in process input data and decide whether the past process output can still be used despite of the input change. In other words, ReComp can estimate the impact of input change on process output and rerun the process only if needed. To do so, our framework uses three types of user-defined functions: difference delta, impact estimation phi, and re-execution row. In this simple scenario, as a process under ReComp control, we use CityCAD, a flat simulation tool developed at School of Engineering at Newcastle University. For the purpose of the demonstration, CityCAD takes three inputs: the Ordnance Survey master map data with building and green area polygons, the data elevation model of the domain in which the simulation takes place, and some additional configuration files. As the output, it generates a sequence of maps indicating water depth and velocity, which may be used to determine places of potential flood risk. In this setting, ReComp will look at the changes in the OS master map data for Newcastle upon Tyne and measure the impact on the most recent CityCAD output. If the impact is significant, the framework will rerun CityCAD to obtain the actual flood simulation output. Otherwise, if the impact of changes is small, the past output is deemed to be as good as the new would be, and the simulation is not run, saving on the computation and reanalysis time and effort. This demonstration application allows us to do two things. First of all, we can use one of the inputs from the list of available versions and run CityCAD for the first time. Then we can pick another input version and ask ReComp to check if it is different enough to justify a rerun of flood simulation. We can repeat this last step by adding new versions and so simulate changes in the city of Newcastle over a number of years. Okay, so now let's select a version of the input data and run CityCAD. Usually, the simulation can run for at least 2 hours, but in this demonstration, it completes in a few moments. That's because, for the sake of the demonstration, the outputs of the simulation are taken from cache. Once completed, we can see the input master map data of the selected area around Newcastle and the simulation output. The input shows buildings in yellow and green areas. White fragments are considered non-permeable surface, which in this case are usually pavements and roads. We can enlarge input and see more closely. We can also see the Tyne River at the bottom of the input data. The red border delineates the DEM of the simulation domain and is not part of the input, but was added just for the clarity of the demonstration. CityCAD was configured to produce a set of 13 maps over an hour of a simulated rain event, one every 5 minutes of the simulation time. This demo app shows the sequence as a video of the water depth. We can enlarge the video to see more details. Note that 1 pixel in the image is a cell of 2 square meters. Colors show different water depth. As we can see, there is a number of regions with relatively high water depth of 1 meter and above. Now, given the first simulation output, we can update the input version to one of the available versions. Let's pick the next input from August 2007 and see if the difference and impact functions can detect a significant change. Let's click on Update Version and observe logs. As we can see, these time logs include also a response from ReComp. A click on the Update Version button makes the demo application to send data derivation event to the framework. ReComp reaction is to start computing difference between inputs. Again, the difference is read from cache, but usually it is a relatively simple action which for the selected area takes only a few minutes to compute. If the difference is non-empty, ReComp starts computing impact of change. Note that the input difference includes every change in the input area, whereas impact will estimate how these changes affect the previous output, and so it will focus on the DM area only. We can see the changes within the DM are relatively small, and so unlikely to cause any significant change in the output. Indeed, in the logs we can see ReComp inform the demo application about no impact of changes. This is a point when the user would save on the recomputation and analysis time, considering the past output from January 2007 as a reasonably accurate approximation of the simulation output for August. Despite of no impact of the changes, the demo application still computes the actual output and produces a video with output difference. This is to allow us to see whether the difference and impact functions were correct in detecting impact of change. As we can see, the difference between outputs for January and August 2007 is actually negligible and remains within 10 centimeters of water depth. Okay, so now let's take a more distant version of the input data and see the input difference and the ReComp response to a change. Again, first the input difference is computed, which is likely to be non-empty. Then impact estimation takes place. Over 2 years of city development is likely to cause some impact on flood. Let's have a look at the input difference. It includes a number of large changes where buildings have been turned into green areas, or vice versa, new buildings were built. As expected, the response from impact function is positive. Impact has been detected and CityCAD rerun. Let's have a closer look at the output difference. We can clearly see a number of large and deep changes in the output. The impact function was correct. We could test ReComp and impact estimation with many other versions of the input data, but it is enough to give you a flavor of what ReComp can be used for. In this scenario, we used ReComp to control a single black box process. It can also control more sophisticated composite processes like pipelines or workflows with forks and joins. If you would like to test ReComp yourself, please visit www.recomp.org.uk and contact us over email.